You better believe that the one streaming service that focuses on horror has some good stuff to watch. They've got plenty of classics along with some lesser known stuff and a surprising amount of horror series. Best of all though, there are the Shudder originals, stuff made in-house or with some help from the good folks running the show. So today we're going to count down the top 5 Shudder horror movies worth watching. Coming in at number 5, we've got Scare Me. There's a whole lot going on in this movie, believe me. If you're a horror fan, a movie buff, a writer, a creative, a lost soul, or anything related to any of the stuff I just said, it will speak to you on some level. It is a very simple premise. An aspiring writer heads to a secluded cabin to get some work done and ends up running into a more successful writer. What could go wrong? Well, more and less than you think. See, there's a lot to pick apart here. Our two writers run into each other early on, and Fred, the less experienced of the two, is starstruck. Fanny, who has written a well-known bestseller, is less interested in spending time with Fred, but a power outage forces them together to stay warm and pass the time. Fred talks a lot about writing but hasn't actually put anything together. So Fanny suggests they start telling scary stories and see who could spook the other person more. Thus begins a fascinatingly efficient series of horror shorts as each character acts out their tales of terror within the confines of their cabin. As they narrate the grisly details, reality seems to warp a little. Elements from their ideas leak into the real world, or at least they seem to. When their stories get good, they get really good. Shadows become monstrous, furniture seems to hold unwelcome guests, sounds that have no business within the wooden walls grace our ears. It's a crazy postmodern look at horror storytelling and spooky tropes, and it is wonderful. The scary stories are the big draw, but over time they become less important than what's going on with our characters. Everybody's got a secret, some darker than others, and nobody seems willing to give theirs up. As more beers and nose beers get downed, the line between fantasy and reality is blurred, and Fred and Fanny begin to see the cracks in each other's facades. Jealousy, impotence, plagiarism, and more come into play as their tenuously friendly storytelling session gets way too real. And of course, the pizza guy gets involved too. The 3-person cast of Josh Rubin, Aya Cash, and Chris Redd do an amazing job bouncing between dramatic, comedic, and horror beats too. For a tightly wound love letter to scary stories and the folks who might like to write them, make sure you check out Scare Me. Coming in at number 4, we've got The Beach House. Now, for the fans of the more cosmic of horror, there's the aquatic, Lovecraftian ride through hell. Part Color Out of Space, part Dagon, all horrifying. Plus, it addresses a fear I didn't really know I had until I watched this movie. You know, what if you decide to relax and partake in some mind-altering substances thinking you're safe, and then something goes terribly wrong and you can't figure it out because it might just be the effects of what you took? Is it real, or is it my brain? What are the consequences of thinking it's all in your head? Is it paranoia? Is it actually happening? Terrifying. So here's how the story goes. Young couple, Emily and Randall, head to Randall's folks' beach house for some time off. Randall just dropped out of college and needs some time to collect himself. They find that some family friends, Jane and Mitch, are already staying there as Jane is terminally ill and wanted one last nice vacation. The four decide to all stay at the waterfront property and have a nice dinner together. That night they indulge in some special brownies, resulting in a couple of less than ideal trips. However, a strange glowing presence also beckons to the vacationers, but everyone assumes that it's just something happening with the brownies. Uh-oh. The next morning, Jane is missing and Mitch is despondent. Could be a hangover, could be something else. It soon becomes apparent that it is indeed something else as the couple acts extremely strangely. Gross, gelatinous forms have washed up on the beach and it seems as though they are full of hideous parasites. And that's just the beginning too. These horrible, mind-controlling creatures have spread across the entire waterfront, infecting people for miles around, turning them into awful, zombie-like abominations. Randall and Emily are attacked by Jane, who has transformed into one of these melty disasters and must find their way back to safety. Easier said than done though. The first half of The Beach House is creepy, melancholic, and foreboding, but it's hard to pin down exactly why. But when it shifts gears and kicks it up a notch, everything starts to make sense. Lovecraftian without making any direct references, this is a strong cosmic horror full of terrors and fascinating questions. Coming in at number 3, we've got La Llorona. No, not the Curse of La Llorona. The Blumhouse flick is serviceable, sure, but the Shudder original La Llorona is something special. Hell, it was Guatemala's submission to the Oscars for Best International Film last year and made the top 15 shortlist. Now, it might not be for everyone, especially those going in with visions of the Conjuring spin-off. It's not a pure horror movie, but instead a piece of historical fiction with horror elements. It takes a look inside the life of a once powerful Guatemalan family. The patriarch, General Enrique Monteverde, was involved in the genocide of native Mayans years prior. The government put him on trial for this, but thanks to a technicality, he's able to go free and return home. People are not happy about this and protest outside of his enormous house, demanding justice. Soon, all of his workers leave, scared for their lives in the wake of increasingly erratic behavior from Enrique, resulting in a new worker coming in. Alma, or Spirit, comes to the house and brings with her a new wave of paranormal activity. Most of the supposed anomalies can be explained away, but with the old general becoming more and more paranoid, it's hard to say where the line is drawn. Could she be the embodiment of the ghastly legend? Plenty of tension is built, but things like jump scares are far and few between. It isn't supposed to scare you, but instead forces audiences to face how they are complicit in oppression. Coming in at number 2, we've got Terrified. If you really want to get scared, go with Terrified. It's all in the title. Seriously though, this one kicks off strong and doesn't let up. No slow burn transitions, no over-explaining of the forces at work. It is a scary movie about scary things happening to people who don't really know what to do about it. Multiple intertwined stories tell the tale of a neighborhood seemingly entirely haunted. A woman is lifted up by an unseen force and dashed against her bathroom walls. A young man dies, is buried, and then finds his way back to the dinner table. The local eccentric isn't taken seriously until it's too late. Then the authorities and a paranormal investigator decide to spend a night in each of these homes to figure out exactly what's happening. This turns out to be a bad idea, and plenty more terror is drummed up. When you decide to stick around in a cursed neighborhood, you're putting your life on the line. There's no fat to trim here, just a bunch of scary stories all tied up together. Some really excellent heart-stopping moments too, so if that sounds up your alley, check it out. And finally at number 1, we've got Host. And I honestly didn't really expect this one to impress me as much as it did. Like Friend Request and Unfriended just seemed kind of silly and contrived, left me cold on the concept of like an internet ghost, and I expected something kind of similar, but Host is not a movie like those ones. It is so much better and really, really scary. Clocking in at just under an hour, not a moment is wasted in this Zoom call nightmare. A group of friends on lockdown decide to do a seance over the internet with an experienced medium guiding them through it. Unfortunately, some technological errors and jokes gone very, very wrong lead to the seance taking a dark and dangerous turn, and each friend finds themselves in a situation full of peril. The story moves fast, with the folks behind each webcam quickly moving from disbelief to abject horror at their situation. It uses the medium of a teleconferencing app really well too, with each character bringing something relatable to the table and using the different features to really sell the scares. Face filters pick up invisible features, background images hide important details, and the fact that none of them are physically together leads to some really unfortunate circumstances. If you want to watch something extremely fun, adrenaline pumping, and scary, this is the movie. And if you want to scare your less horror-inclined friends with a tight package with no fat to trim, this is the one. Want to make sure you can never confidently log into Zoom again? This one right here. I know we've done paid promotions for Shudder before, but I can confidently say that this is a streaming service that I use all the time. No requirements or outside influence here. I just think Shudder is a lovely place to watch horror content. So if any of these movies interest you, you know where to go. What'd you think of the list? Did I leave any good ones out? I tried to talk mostly about Shudder originals, although I probably could have included some exclusives too. Make sure you let me know what you're thinking down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your more spicy ones from the top 5 Foundation secrets they don't want you to know. Steezy MPZ says, I love that Chief Keeg is an actual fan of SCP. It's clear he knows more than if he was just reading a script. You beautiful red beard bastard. Uh-oh. Christian Loper says, thank you for helping in my fight to conquer boredom and keeping us informed on the Foundation. Love the videos and commentary. Just doing my duty. Thanks for tuning in. Prep for It says, I like the idea of feeding criminals to a giant eel. Very cost effective. Well, I mean, cost effective until everyone forgets about it entirely. Miko Kudu says, maybe Keegan is part of the O5 Council. Maybe I am. You'll never know. Tony Shears says, do top 10 reality bending SCPs. Unfortunately, our whole shtick is top 5s. And that's all the time we have for today. I'm going to pretend to be a mannequin to stay after hours in the mall. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.